Since we just got finished with radicals, we're going to look at solving radical equations. A radical equation is an equation that has a variable in a radicand. So, for example, the square root of x minus 5 equals 3. That is a radical equation. Or the square root of x minus 1 with x minus 1 underneath the radical. That is a radical equation. So in order to solve a radical equation, we first need to get the radical by itself on one side of the equation. Then we're going to square both sides. And then we're going to solve the equation. Now, a radical cannot equal a negative number. So like the square root of x cannot equal negative 4, okay? It's because the square root is going to always be equal to positive numbers. So we'll get to one problem like that, and I'll show it to you when we get there. Okay, so first example, solve the following radical equation, and it says the square root of x minus 7 equals the square root of x plus 1. So we have a radical on each side of the equal sign. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to square both sides. Now, when we square both sides, what that does is this: when we square a square root, it basically they basically cancel each other out. So the square root of x, the square root symbol and the x squared and the squared symbol is gone. So now we just have x minus 7 equals x plus 1. And so now we're just looking at solving a basic equation. So we're going to subtract x from both sides, and we get negative 7 equals positive 1 because these zero out. So that is not a true statement. So the answer would be there is no solution. So you would circle or fill in B. All right, number 2. So in our steps, it said first get the radical by itself. So on this problem, we're first going to add 8 to both sides. And we get the square root of x, because this is 0, equals 11. Now that we have them on the radical by itself on one side, now we can square. And so x is equal to, because remember this square and square root cancel out, so it's just x is equal to 11 squared, which is 121. So this answer would be 121. Okay, number 3. The square root of 2a plus 10 is equal to 6. So the whole radical is by itself on the left side. 2a plus 10 is underneath that radical. So we're going to square both sides. And we get 2a plus 10 equals 36. And then we just solve for a. So subtract 10. That's supposed to be a 10. 2a equals 26. Divide by 2. And a equals 13. Okay, so that would go right here. That's supposed to be a 13. Okay. All right, number 4. Now this is a word problem. It says you're making a tire swing for a playground. The time t in seconds for the tire to make one swing is given by this equation. T equals 4 times the square root of L over 5.9. Where L is the length of the swing in feet, you want one swing to take 4.5 seconds. So that's going to go in for T. So that's going to go right here, 4.5. And that's supposed to be a decimal. Okay, so equals 4 and then square root of L over 5.9. Now, with this problem, what we're going to do first is get the radical by itself. So we're going to divide by 4. So, and notice it says do not round until the final answer. So 4.5 divided by 4 is 1.25 equals the square root of L over 5.9. All right, so now we're going to square both sides because the radical is now by itself. So remember, don't round. So this is 1.265625. equals L over 5.9. All right, now we're going to multiply by 5.9 on both sides. So multiplying by 5.9, we get 7.4671875. Now we're going to round to the tenths. So the tenths place is this 4. That 6 makes the 4 go up to a 5. So the final answer is 7.5. So that would go right there. 7.5. My decimal's not showing up very well. Okay. All right, number 5. We did something similar to this at the very beginning of these notes. Square both sides. And we get 8v minus 8 equals 6v plus 8. So in these type of equations, whenever you have variables on both sides, just like I did on the very first example, first get the v's together on one side. So I always move the smallest v term. So we get 2v minus 8 equals 8, because that's 0. Add 8 to both sides. And we get 2v equals 16. Divide by 2. So v equals 8. So this answer is 8. Okay, number 6, same thing. We're going to square both sides. And we get, it's an s, plus 6 equals 14 minus s. That's supposed to be an s. So I'm going to add s to both sides. And I get 2s plus 6 equals 14. Subtract 6. And I get 2s equals 8. Divide by 2. S is equal to 4. All right, now number 7 is a problem where we're going to have to do some factoring. We do have the square root by itself. And we've done these problems back when we did 9.4 or did something similar to this. So x squared equals 3x plus 4. So since I have the x squared, I need to get this equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 3x, subtract this 3x, and subtract this 4. Okay. So now I'm going to factor. So when I factor, I get x minus 4, x plus 1 equals 0. That's supposed to be a 0. All right, so remember, after we factor, we take each factor, set it equal to 0, and solve. So this would be, add 4 to both sides. This would be x equals 4. Make that look like, oops. So x equals 4. And this would be x equals negative 1. So I have two choices here. But I want you to remember from the beginning, this x right here at the very beginning, it cannot be negative. So we're not going to use the x equals negative 1 for the answer. We're only going to use x equals 4 for the answer. So this answer is 4. Okay, because remember back at the beginning I said that a square root cannot equal a negative number. So that x on the outside of the radical cannot equal a negative number. All right, number 8. Again, we're going to square both sides. We already have the radical. So we get 4x plus 13 equals 25. Subtract 13. And 4x equals 12. Divide by 4. X equals 3. All right, and last one is another word problem. This formula is t equals the square root of n over 16. It gives the time in seconds for an object that is initially at rest to fall in feet. What is the distance an object falls in the first 6 seconds? So 6 is going in for t. So we square both sides, and we get 36 equals n over 16. And then we multiply both sides by 16. So this answer is 500. Let me double check here. 576 equals n. So that answer is 576. Okay, so those are the type of problems you're going to be seeing for solving radical equations.